Fever FM, the number one choice in Leeds.
ओके मेरे दोस्तों फीवर एफएम आपका सब सुन रहे हैं एंड टुगेदर वी कैन प्रोजेक्ट में वी हैव फ्रॉम एंजाइटी यूके द Dave Smithson. Let me welcome Dave. Hello.
Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me to join you today.
Good afternoon, David. Thank you very much for giving us your time. And I will first of all simply ask you, Anxiety UK. Obviously, it's an organization. Can you tell me a little bit about Anxiety UK? What do you do? When were you formed? Where are you?
Yeah. So we're a national charity. We're a national user-led charity. So many of our staff have their own lived experience of living with anxiety or stress or anxiety-based depression. And we were formed in 1970 by a couple called Harold and Catherine Fisher.
Right.
Catherine suffered with or lived with agoraphobia, and they struggled to find help or support. So they started their own support group effectively in 1970 in Manchester. And that's where the charity started from.
Okay.
So we celebrated our 50th anniversary in 2020, which of course was a very strange year for many of us. And when the pandemic hit in March, so all of our plans to celebrate our 50th anniversary went a little bit awry. But so we've been around for 52 years, and we provide information and help and support and advice to people living with anxiety, stress, anxiety-based depression through our national helpline, through email support, text messaging. And we also now have on our website an e-helper, a bot effectively called Anxia.
I see.
And Anxia is available 24/7 because we know people come to our website all times of day and night, and not just from the UK, from outside of the UK as well. We get visitors to the website from Australia, from Canada, from America, from South America. And indeed, we've got relationships with other organizations across the world. So we have an informal partnership with the Anxiety and Depression Alliance of America, with an organization in Canada and in Peru. We've been working with a self-help group in Peru that's recently set up, helping them get started. So we work with other international organizations.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's absolutely brilliant. It's the most simplest questions you've probably ever been asked. What is anxiety? What is depression? In simplest terms, if you can.
Yeah. I mean, in simple terms, anxiety is fear or worry. It's a natural and can be quite a helpful emotion to experience because it can stop us maybe doing something that's dangerous.
Yes.
So a simple example is crossing the road. I often use that simple analogy. You know, we don't just walk into the street, do we? When we get to the edge of the pavement, we stop and look and make sure that there's no traffic.
Of course.
It's that natural emotion, that natural instinct to be protective of ourselves and to have a fear or worry to protect ourselves from danger. But when anxiety it becomes a problem, because it is natural and it's good to have it, and sometimes anxiety is a good thing because it does safeguard us. When it becomes a problem is when it starts to interfere with our day-to-day living, when it interferes with your ability to function normally. So your anxiety is so great, it stops you. It stops you doing things that you would normally be able to and expected to be able to do. And depression is a slightly different condition altogether. And often anxiety and depression are with a lot of people are what we call comorbid. So you often will have symptoms of both anxiety and depression together. They estimate between 60 and 90% of people with anxiety will also be feeling some degree of depression. So we're talking about it as anxiety-based depression because it's the anxiety that then it causes really low mood, low self-esteem. You feel down, you feel miserable, you don't feel upbeat. The whole weight of the anxiety on your shoulders lowers your mood and your general well-being feelings. So, it's about... We talk about helping you to manage your anxiety rather than the anxiety managing you.
I see, yes. How when someone, sort of comes to realize that they're at that stage now where they need some help, is it easily definable or do other people have to sort of inform you? Do people really sort of, take control of themselves?
They can do. I mean, there's lots of different ways you can look after your your mental health, your mental well-being, and that is, anxiety is a common mental health disorder. So simple things, so lots of self-care and self-help tools and techniques are available. Just looking after your diet, looking after what you eat, being careful what you eat. There's a lot of research been done in recent years, and we've worked with some really eminent people in academia who have looked at the link between the gut and the brain. And there's lots of research that's proven there is a direct link between what goes into your gut and the gut microbiomes and the brain.
Oh, really? Really?
Yeah, it's fascinating. We've done work with people like Professor Ted Dinan at Cork University in Ireland and Professor Felice Jacka in Australia, two leading people, and a lady in Manchester, where we're based, at Manchester Met University, called Halle.
So you're saying that, what we eat, the food we eat, it can sort of...
It can affect how your brain responds to it. Yes, absolutely. And as I say, there's a lot of scientific evidence that's proven this now. So the gut.
What sort of foods should we be avoiding then?
So you should avoid too much caffeine, too much fast food. Try eating, fermented foods like kimchi is good for you. Good vegetables like broccoli and asparagus can be good. Avocado, oily fish like mackerel and salmon. These are some examples. There's a piece of research came out about 3 years ago looking at the Mediterranean diet and the health benefits of the Mediterranean diet. So, I would recommend anybody does a Google search for that, or we have a nutrition and anxiety self-help guide that you can download from our website, which was written in conjunction with a lady called Halle Moravec, who is a senior nutritionist at Manchester Met University. And Halle did a lot of work with us to produce this guide. So it's really important that you look after your diet. And it's also important to exercise well for your mental health as well as your physical health. So we know during lockdown, we were encouraged to take time out, to take an hour out of the day and go out and get some exercise, even when we were in lockdown. And that was for our mental health as much as our physical health. So there is a recognition that exercise is as equally as important for your mental well-being as anything else. And then invest in some self-care, some me time, some mindfulness activities. So all that can be wrapped up, for example, with a real, especially on a day like today. I don't know where it is in Leeds, but here
it's lovely and sunny here.
It's beautiful today, isn't it?
Yeah,
a nice crisp winter day, and go for a walk out into the forest if you're able to get out into the countryside. Enjoy the birds, enjoy the wildlife, just enjoy that and soak up that whole atmosphere. It makes you feel good. It's that feel-good factor, isn't it? So engaging with nature can be very, very good for our well-being as well. So that's something we can do. And then there's lots of other self-help tools and self-help techniques. There's self-help groups that you can join. And we obviously, during lockdown, again, so much has happened over the last 18 months to 20 months. So a lot of self-help groups that meet and support each other. People, obviously with their own lived experience, can support each other much better because they understand what everyone's going through.
Yes, of course. What's the other causes of feeling anxious? And is there any other, or is there one or two main ones if there is?
A lot of the causes, often again, there's a huge study going on in London, one of the colleges in London at the moment, called the genetic link between anxiety and depression. Right. They call it the GLAD study, genetic link between anxiety and depression. And they're looking at the genetics of it, and they're asking people to submit a sample of their DNA, and they're looking into the DNA to see if there is a particular process, a particular part of our genetics, a particular element of our DNA that makes us, some people, more prone to anxiety or depression than others. And obviously the long-term aim of that study is to see if they can affect some change in the DNA that would reduce that level of anxiety or depression. So it becomes manageable. People often will ask us, can you cure me of my anxiety? And we say, well, if we cured you of your anxiety, we would eliminate it altogether. And those times when the anxiety is actually helpful, like stopping you crossing that road,
you need to have that little bit.
You need to have a little bit. So we don't want to cure you of it. We want to help you manage it.
And that's what you do, manage, obviously, people, suffering from this. And
And that can be done through a lot of those self-help techniques, maybe supporting each other. But for some people, they need more than that. So it may be that they need to go to the doctor and they'll prescribe some medication, or they may be referred to a therapist and to have access to some talking therapy services, or it could be a combination of both medication and talking therapy if the self-help tools are not sufficient.
Is there any figures, that how many people, just for example, in UK are suffering at any one time?
They estimate it's about 1 in 5 of us.
1 in 5,
so
as many
20%. And yeah, I mean, so it's quite common. And one of the things that we do encourage people to think about is to help them normalize it, to say, actually, because people often think, oh, is it just me? Am I someone a bit weird? Or actually, you're not. You're one of at least 20% of the country who are living like this.
Yes.
And in actual fact, just again, because of the pandemic and the mental health problems that's caused, we think that's probably nearer to 1 in 4 over the last 18 months.
Oh dear.
Because the one of the things that helps our mental well-being is contact with other people, human contact, socializing. And of course, many of us have not been able to socialize for such a long period of time in isolation. So that's made mental health problems were exacerbated a bit during the pandemic. They are starting to return to pre-pandemic levels, but yeah, I would say between 1 in 4, 1 in 5 people will experience or live with anxiety.
So you're saying that from 1 in 5 to 1 in 4 due to the pandemic, is that because of the loneliness, people losing contact with other people? And
yeah, very much so. And the uncertainty, the fear and the worry about catching the virus, catching COVID, particularly in the early days before we had their vaccination program.
Yes,
a lot of people were very worried about catching it, and obviously sadly the number of people that were passing because of COVID and the deaths that were being associated with it was causing a lot of fear and worry in people. So that caused a heightened level of anxiety. And then there was the fear of, well, when they did release some of the restrictions, was it safe to go back out? Was it safe to go back to work?
Yes.
Did they feel comfortable? Or in many cases, people were furloughed, particularly in areas like hospitality, and they weren't able to go back to work and they were struggling financially. And one of the causes of anxiety can be financial pressures. They can cause stress, and stress can lead to anxiety. So lots of reasons why people were experiencing heightened and increased levels of anxiety at various stages of the pandemic, either say because of lockdown, the lack of social activity, the lack of the isolation.
Yes.
And the other impact, the other sort of byproducts of that, as I say, the financial stress and worries and so forth.